Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into this mind-blowing topic about Lucifer and quantum science, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button, give this video a big like, and share it with your friends who are into science, spirituality. Your support helps keep this channel growing, so let's get those notifications on and spread the word. Now, let's explore how ancient Goetic rituals might have predicted quantum mechanics and what it means for modern atheism. The intersection of ancient occult practices and modern physics represents one of the most fascinating and controversial areas of contemporary discourse. This exploration examines the provocative claim that Lucifer, understood within esoteric traditions as a symbol of enlightenment and hidden knowledge, may have served as a conduit for principles that would later emerge in quantum mechanics. Furthermore, we investigate whether Goetic rituals contain elements that anticipated quantum phenomena, and what implications this might hold for materialist atheism. Before proceeding, it's essential to establish that this examination approaches the subject from multiple perspectives: historical, philosophical, and scientific. We are not asserting literal supernatural causation, but rather exploring the intriguing parallels between ancient magical practices and modern quantum theory, and what these connections might reveal about consciousness, reality, and knowledge itself. In Western esoteric traditions, Lucifer occupies a complex position that differs significantly from popular religious depictions. The name itself, derived from Latin, means light-bearer or morning star. Within occult philosophy, Lucifer represents the principle of illumination, the pursuit of forbidden knowledge, and the human capacity for intellectual rebellion against imposed limitations. The Goetic tradition, documented most famously in texts like the Lesser Key of Solomon Le Megeton, describes systematic practices for summoning and working with various entities. These practices involve precise rituals, symbolic diagrams, incantations, and mental disciplines. Practitioners claim these methods produce tangible results not necessarily through literal demonic intervention, but through mechanisms that engage deep psychological and perhaps physical principles. Quantum mechanics, developed in the early 20th century, revealed that reality at the subatomic level behaves in ways that defy classical intuition. Key principles include wave-particle duality. Subatomic particles exhibit properties of both waves and particles, depending on how they are observed. Superposition, particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until measured. Entanglement, particles can become correlated in ways that transcend spatial separation, with measurements on one instantly affecting the other. Observer effect, the act of measurement fundamentally alters the system being observed. Uncertainty principle, certain pairs of properties like position and momentum cannot be simultaneously known with perfect precision. These principles suggest that consciousness, observation, and reality itself are interconnected in ways that classical physics never anticipated, and remarkably, in ways that ancient magical traditions seem to have intuited. Perhaps the most striking parallel between Goetic ritual and quantum mechanics lies in the role of the observer. In quantum physics, the observer effect demonstrates that the act of measurement collapses the wave function, determining which of multiple possible states becomes actual reality. Goetic rituals place enormous emphasis on the practitioner's focused intention and visualization. The magician must maintain unwavering concentration on the desired outcome, constructing elaborate mental images and emotional states. The ritual acts as a technology for focusing consciousness with laser-like precision toward a specific result. This isn't mere positive thinking. The protocols are exacting specific times, planetary hours, carefully prepared tools, and states of consciousness achieved through fasting, meditation, or other preparations. The practitioner becomes, in effect, A highly focused observer whose concentrated attention is believed to collapse probability into actuality, precisely what quantum mechanics suggests happens at the subatomic level. Goetic traditions utilize complex systems of correspondences, symbols, colors, numbers, planetary associations, and geometric figures. Each entity in the Goetic hierarchy corresponds to specific symbols, seals, and vibrational signatures. These aren't arbitrary, they form an intricate web of relationships that practitioners claim encode information about reality's structure. Modern quantum information theory suggests that information is fundamental to physical reality, not merely descriptive of it, but constitutive of it. The physicist John Wheeler proposed it from bit, the idea that physical reality emerges from information. Quantum entanglement can be understood as information correlation. The Goetic system of correspondences might represent an ancient information framework, a pre-scientific encoding of how consciousness interfaces with reality's quantum substrate. The symbols and seals could function as what we might today call quantum access codes, specific informational structures that resonate with particular states or potentials in the quantum field. Ritual space as quantum isolation. Goetic practice requires creating sacred space, typically a circle of protection with specific boundary markers. This isn't superstition. It serves practical purposes that parallel quantum experimental design. In quantum mechanics, maintaining coherence requires isolating systems from environmental interference, decoherence. Quantum computers require extreme isolation to maintain superposition states. Similarly, the magical circle creates a bounded domain where normal causation is suspended and different rules apply, a space isolated from the noise of ordinary consciousness and environmental influences. The ritual space becomes analogous to a quantum computing chamber, a carefully controlled environment where consciousness can manipulate probability without interference. The elaborate preparations, purification, consecration, establishing boundaries mirror the exacting requirements for maintaining quantum coherence. Evocation and quantum superposition. When a Goetic practitioner evokes an entity, they're not necessarily summoning a literal demon from another dimension. Advanced practitioners understand evocation as manifesting latent potentials, bringing specific aspects of reality or consciousness from potential into actuality. This process mirrors quantum superposition and collapse. Before evocation, the entity exists in potential and superposition, we might say. The ritual process, through focused observation and intention, collapses this potential into manifestation. The entity appears not because it traveled from elsewhere, but because the practitioner's consciousness interfaced with the quantum field in a specific way, actualizing one possibility for many. Practitioners report that evoked entities often appear in unexpected forms or communicate information the magician consciously doesn't possess. This aligns with quantum mechanics' suggestion that observation doesn't create reality arbitrarily, but actualizes pre-existing potentials according to probability distributions. The magician constrains but doesn't fully determine the outcome, just as quantum measurement reveals what was always probabilistically present. Consciousness and the quantum field, bridging ancient and modern. The hard problem and magical consciousness. The hard problem of consciousness, explaining how subjective experience arises from physical matter, remains unsolved in neuroscience and philosophy. Materialist atheism typically assumes consciousness is merely an epiphenomenon of brain activity, despite lacking a convincing explanation for how this occurs. Quantum approaches to consciousness, like those proposed by physicists Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, suggest that consciousness might involve quantum processes in brain microtubules. Other theories propose consciousness is fundamental to reality itself, not derived from matter. Goetic practice assumes consciousness is primary and causal. The practitioner's mental state directly influences outcomes. This isn't belief, it's methodology. Whether or not literal demons exist, the techniques consistently produce results that suggest consciousness interfaces with reality in ways materialist models cannot explain. If consciousness does interact with the quantum level, as some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest, then ancient magicians may have empirically discovered this fact millennia before physicists formulated the mathematics. They developed practical technologies for leveraging this interaction, encoded in symbolic language because mathematical formalism didn't exist. Non-locality and magical sympathy. Quantum entanglement demonstrates non-local correlations. Particles separated by vast distances remain connected, with measurements on one instantly affecting the other. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance, and it's now experimentally confirmed. Magical traditions have always operated on the principle of sympathy, that connections exist between things regardless of spatial separation. A lock of hair connects to its owner, a planetary talisman connects to planetary influences, names create links to entities. This was dismissed as superstition, but quantum non-locality suggests that non-spatial connections are fundamental to reality. Goetic rituals often employ sympathetic links, using personal items, names, or symbolic representations to establish connections. If consciousness can influence the quantum level, and quantum entanglement creates non-local correlations, then sympathetic magic becomes theoretically plausible not as supernatural force, but as practical application of quantum principles. Challenging materialist atheism. The limits of reductionism. Materialist atheism rests on reductionism, the belief that everything, including consciousness and meaning, reduces to material particles following deterministic laws. Quantum mechanics fundamentally challenges this worldview. Quantum phenomena are irreducibly holistic. Entangled systems cannot be understood by analyzing parts separately. The observer cannot be excluded from the system. Reality exists in superposition until actualized through interaction. These facts suggest reality is fundamentally participatory and consciousness involving, not mechanistic. If the universe operates according to principles that ancient magicians empirically discovered, even if they described them in mythological rather than mathematical terms, then the dismissal of all non-materialist perspectives becomes scientifically untenable. We must at least consider that consciousness plays a more fundamental role than materialism allows. Evidence from anomalous phenomena. While mainstream science typically dismisses parapsychological research, meta-analyses of carefully controlled experiments show small but statistically significant effects in areas like telepathy, precognition, and psychokinesis. These effects are subtle, consistent with quantum-level influence, but persistent across decades of research. Dean Radin's experiments using double-slit apparatus suggest that focused attention can influence quantum interference patterns. Global Consciousness Project data shows correlations between random number generators and major world events. While controversial, these findings align with the possibility that consciousness interfaces with quantum processes. Goetic practitioners report results that seem to exceed chance, accurate divination, meaningful synchronicities, influence on events at a distance. While anecdotal evidence isn't scientific proof, the consistency of these reports across cultures and centuries suggests something merits investigation beyond dismissive skepticism. The Lucifer principle, knowledge without authority. The symbolic significance of Lucifer, the light-bearer who challenged divine authority to bring knowledge to humanity, resonates with the scientific spirit itself. Science progresses by questioning authority, challenging dogma, and seeking truth regardless of orthodoxy. Ironically, materialist atheism has become its own orthodoxy, dismissing evidence and experience that doesn't fit its framework. The Lucifer principle suggests that genuine inquiry requires questioning all authority, including scientific materialism when it becomes dogmatic. Goetic practice embodies this principle, seeking knowledge through direct experience rather than accepting received wisdom. Practitioners experiment, document results, refine techniques following an empirical method that predates formal science. They've concluded, based on experience, that consciousness and reality interact in ways that materialist models cannot accommodate. Theoretical frameworks integrating magic and physics. Information as the fundamental reality. If we accept that information is fundamental as quantum information theory suggests, then symbolic systems like Goetic correspondences represent genuine knowledge about reality's informational structure. These systems encode how consciousness can query and influence the information substrate underlying physical phenomena. The elaborate symbolic language of magic becomes a pre-mathematical notation system for quantum information protocols. Just as mathematical equations describe quantum operations, magical symbols and rituals might describe consciousness operations on the quantum field. Consciousness as quantum interface. If consciousness involves quantum processes, whether in brain microtubules or as a fundamental property of reality itself, then training consciousness through magical practice becomes analogous to programming a quantum computer. The magician develops capabilities for interfacing with quantum-level reality that ordinary, untrained consciousness cannot achieve. Goetic rituals represent sophisticated training protocols for developing these capabilities. The discipline required, the precise mental states cultivated, the symbolic systems mastered, these aren't superstition but skill development for quantum conscious interaction. Reality as participatory. Perhaps most profoundly, both quantum mechanics and magical traditions suggest reality is participatory rather than observer-independent. We don't merely observe a pre-existing reality, our consciousness participates in actualizing reality from quantum potential. This bridges the ancient Hermetic principle as above, so below with the quantum principle that observation collapses wave functions. Reality is neither purely objective nor purely subjective, but co-created through the interaction of consciousness with the quantum field. Magic represents humanity's oldest technology for conscious participation in this co-creation. Practical implications and future research. Experimental approaches. Rather than dismissing Goetic practice as superstition, genuine scientific inquiry should investigate its claims empirically. This requires documenting practitioner experiences systematically, identifying consistent patterns and outcomes that exceed chance expectations, conducting controlled experiments examining whether magical rituals influence quantum-level phenomena, building on preliminary work like Radin's double-slit experiments. Investigating consciousness states during ritual using neuroimaging and quantum measurement technologies, examining whether focused intention correlates with measurable physical effects, analyzing the information structure of magical symbol systems using quantum information theory, determining whether correspondences encode meaningful relationships. Philosophical reconsideration. The parallels between Goetic practice and quantum mechanics demand philosophical reconsideration of several questions. What is consciousness, and what role does it play in physical reality? Can we maintain that consciousness is merely epiphenomenal when both quantum physics and magical traditions suggest otherwise? How should we evaluate knowledge claims based on experience that doesn't fit materialist paradigms? Is dismissing millennia of consistent reports from intelligent practitioners scientifically justified? What counts as evidence? If subtle but consistent effects appear in controlled conditions, do we reject them because they're small, or investigate why reality might operate at threshold levels? Integration rather than opposition. The most productive approach may be integration rather than opposition. Ancient magical traditions and modern physics might describe the same underlying reality using different languages: symbolic versus mathematical, experiential versus theoretical. Just as wave mechanics and matrix mechanics describe quantum phenomena through different formalisms, magical symbolism and quantum mathematics might offer complementary perspectives on consciousness-reality interaction, neither complete without the other. Together they might reveal deeper truths than either alone. Conclusion: toward a post-materialist science. The parallels between Goetic ritual practices and quantum mechanical principles suggest that ancient magicians empirically discovered aspects of reality that modern physics has only recently begun to formalize mathematically. Whether we interpret these practices literally, as engagement with actual entities, or metaphorically, as technologies for consciousness quantum interaction, they challenge materialist atheism's dismissal of all non-physical causation. Lucifer, understood as the principle of enlightenment through forbidden knowledge, serves as an apt symbol for this inquiry. Just as the mythological Lucifer challenged divine authority to bring knowledge to humanity, contemporary investigation of consciousness and quantum reality challenges scientific materialism's authority to define what questions merit investigation. The evidence suggests that reality is far stranger than classical physics imagined, and that consciousness plays a role in actualizing reality from quantum potential. Ancient magical traditions seem to have recognized and systematically explored these facts using pre-scientific methods. Rather than dismissing these traditions as primitive superstition, genuine scientific inquiry should investigate what insights they might offer. This doesn't require abandoning scientific rigor or embracing supernatural explanations. It requires expanding our framework to accommodate phenomena that materialism cannot explain, following evidence wherever it leads, and recognizing that ancient wisdom traditions might encode genuine knowledge in symbolic forms. The future of science may lie not in opposing ancient wisdom but in integrating it, translating experiential knowledge into testable hypotheses, examining consciousness-reality interaction with the same rigor applied to physical phenomena, and developing a post-materialist framework that honors both objective measurement and subjective experience. Whether or not Lucifer exists as an actual entity, the principle he represents, seeking knowledge beyond imposed boundaries, questioning authority, illuminating the hidden, guides us toward a more complete understanding of reality. Quantum mechanics has opened doors that materialism kept locked. Perhaps it's time to explore what lies beyond them, learning from those who walked these paths before modern science existed. The conversation between ancient magic and modern physics has just begun. Where it leads may transform not only our understanding of reality but our place within it, conscious participants in the quantum dance of potential becoming actual, observers whose attention shapes the universe we inhabit.